Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Microbiology with Sumi. If you like my video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Today's topic is secondary screening. So let's start with it. Difference between primary screening and secondary screening. Desired microorganisms are isolated and detected. Here, isolated microorganisms are used for secondary screening, as well as only the basic information of that isolated colony is obtained. So simply in primary screening, the organisms are isolated, detected, further used in secondary screening, as well as here only basic information about that isolate is obtained, as well as in secondary screening. The industrially important organisms are categorized by using highly selective procedures. Here the organisms that are isolated from primary screening are used. Further, the organisms that are capable to give high yield of product by using cheap raw material are screened. So this is the basic rule of fermentation. In fermentation, the organism should be able to produce high yield of product by using cheap raw material. So only such organisms that are able to give high yield of product from cheap raw material are selected. Further, detailed information of isolated colony is obtained and determined whether it can be used on industrial scale. So when we carry out secondary screening, that isolate is further used in many tests are carried out, many procedures are carried out, and then we get the results. Then it is determined whether this isolate should be used on industrial scale or no. Here capabilities and yield potential of microbes is determined. Here what are the capabilities of that organisms? What are the capabilities means here how much temperature it can resist, how much pH it can resist, how much product it can form, how much media it requires, how much nutrient supply that is it requires, and the yield potential, that is how much yield it can give from this raw material, is determined here. Here valueless organisms are discarded and valuable organisms that are capable to produce product on industrial scale are used further. So here in screening, the valueless organisms are removed. They are discarded. Only the organisms that are valuable and can produce the product on industrial scale, that is they can give high yield of that product from cheap raw material, are selected and used further. Now let's see secondary screening in detail. Secondary screening is used to obtain the following information about the isolated microorganism. It can be used to determine qualitative as well as quantitative information about the strains. Now whenever we use an isolate, we determine its qualitative as well as quantitative information. Qualitative means what is the quality of that microorganism as well as what is the quality of the product that is formed from that microorganism, and quantitative means in what amount, in what is the proportion, or we can say what is the quantity of that product that is obtained from that isolate. Qualitative in the sense determination of inhibitory spectrum in case of antibiotics and yield potential of the product. Now here in case of antibiotics, the inhibitory spectrum is determined whether the antibiotics is broad spectrum antibiotic or narrow spectrum antibiotic, it is determined. And yield potential means what is the potential of that yield, what is the potential of that product is determined in qualitative analysis. Quantitative is the determination of the quantity of product obtained by using different fermentation media. Now whenever we use the isolate in fermentation, we use different fermentation media to screen from which fermentation media we obtain a good quality of product. So here it is determined that from which fermentation media the isolate can give the best quality of product and high yield. Secondary screening helps to determine the product produced by fermentation media by using various techniques like chromatography. Now after fermentation a product is formed. Now we don't know what is the product formed. Now it is important to determine what is that product. So here various techniques like chromatography are used to determine which product is formed. It provides information necessary for classification and identification of organisms, due to which pathogenicity to human and animals can be determined. So in secondary screening, we get information which is important for classification and identification of an organisms, and after classification and identification, we can determine whether this organism is harmful or whether it is pathogenic to human or animals. So it is important to determine this. Secondary screening helps to determine the genetic instability of strain. It is very important because if the organisms carry out mutation and loses the capabilities of giving high yield, then industry may face a great loss. Now suppose a industry has screened an organism which is giving a high yield, and now that industry is carrying out an fermentation on large scale. Now during fermentation, if that organisms become genetically unstable due to mutation, then the organism is not going to give high yield, and it will then result in loss of that industry. So it is very important to determine the genetic stability of that isolate. In secondary screening, various nutrients that are provided for growth are tested for toxicity, so that any nutrient compound that is toxic to growth of isolated strain should be eliminated. Now here various nutrient compounds is used in fermentation media, and each and every component is tested for its toxicity. If that component is harmful for the growth of that isolate, then that substance is eliminated from the media. The chemical solubility of product produced is tested. If the organic solvent in which the product can be dissolved are eliminated. Now sometimes the fermentation media may contain organic solvent, and if the product which is produced dissolves in that organic solvent, then what is the use of carrying out the fermentation? The industry is going to face a loss. So such organic solvent is inhibited. It is not used in that fermentation media. The secondary screening determines the capability of an organism to alter or destroy its own product. Now some organisms have capability to alter or destroy its own product that they have produced. So such organisms are determined and such organisms are inhibited, because we don't want any loss in our industrial fermentation. Thus, secondary screening is all about the collection of broad range of information about the isolated strain, and on the basis of this information, it is decided whether the selected microorganism is suitable for use on an industrial scale or not. So, in this secondary screening procedure, the isolated organism is screened out by using various techniques, and then after the results are obtained, it is decided whether this organism is suitable for an industrial use or no. Thank you for watching my video. If you like my video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel.